Hi, and welcome to another episode of Real Estate with Howard Drukarsh. For those that don't know me, I'm one of the co-founders, along with Arthur Bartram and Ron Petticord, of Canada's largest independent real estate brokerage with over 5,500 agents. Along with that, in my background, I've been a member of the board of directors of the Real Estate Council of Ontario, the regulator, and I've been on the board of directors of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, and I'm also on the board of directors of the company I co-founded. In my career, particularly in the company I co-founded, I worked as manager, I worked as broker of record, worked as president, and through all those roles, the most important thing was the hiring of agents. And during the time I was active in the company, I hired over 1,000 agents. So that's a bit of about my background. And if you're interested in finding out more, our first podcast episode is called Intro. It's the only one that's audio only. All the rest on YouTube are video and audio. You can check me out. And today, I'm very happy to have a guest who has about the same vintage in the real estate career as I do. And we're going to give you a bit about his background, and then we're going to have him join us. So for 37 years, our guest Mark has been in the business. The first 25 were executive marketing positions for like an incredible range of companies in Canada, but particularly in the Toronto area. Bramalea Limited, Menkes Developments, Concord Adex Developments, Tribute Communities. And then in late 2007, Mark founded the TCS Marketing System, which he'll be telling us about today, and how it helps developers. And it's a sales advisory group that works with developers to help them build pre-construction projects that are unique and very successul. Mark, before we get into that, and now I'm going to turn the camera on to Mark Cohen. Thank you for joining us. Nice to see you.
Howard, great to see you. I'm very happy to be with you.
Thank you. And I'm going to go through a bit of your background because I think people will find it interesting. One of the things that a lot of people find when I ask this question, it's in your family, were there entrepreneurs? Because sometimes that has an effect on people's careers.
You know, it's funny you asked. My cottage was next door. My family's cottage was next door to a real entrepreneur. My family were probably more conservative. My father, only child, grew up in North Bay. He was a lawyer, good lawyer. So we have a doctor, we have a lawyer. One of my brothers is a bit of an entrepreneur. He bought a piece of property that he wants to develop. But we were pretty, we weren't entrepreneurs by nature. But I cottaged with an entrepreneur who really got me into the business and, steered me away from being a lawyer, something I could have done.
Okay, so let's get on to, which is the meat of the podcast, is your incredible career at TCS. Let's kind of take us through why you started it, the early years, the struggles, no doubt, and any startup's got struggles. And the clients that you've worked with, clients you'll be working with, I guess, in the future, and how that helps them, in my opinion, in one of the most competitive markets for pre-construction. I mean, this city is endlessly building. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mark, and let you talk about TCS.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate it. I worked 25 years for those powerhouses, and when you work for those companies, you're going to sell. You're going to sell lots. You're going to sell hundreds of homes and hundreds of condos. But that wasn't really the measure of success. You were going to sell houses or condos for those people, no matter who you were. It's how you did it. It's how you conducted yourself. It's how you represented the company. And most importantly, how you ensured that they made money. Selling in our town is easy. Everything in Toronto sells. Mm-hmm. We all know why. It keeps going and going and going. And condos are selling like crazy because people can't afford houses. Houses are selling like crazy because there's no more land for houses. And, the immigration is huge and the borrowing cost is low and affordability is key. And we let everyone in. And so selling is easy. But I learned from those big companies how to conduct yourselves and how to conduct myself. I was a real estate agent. I'm pretty sure that I took my real estate license about the same time as you in the 80s.
Right.
I think it's the first time that we met.
Yeah.
And I really sold the first new condos in Toronto when Bramalea was, they were big rental managers and we were renting apartments like crazy. And then the market changed and rent controls came into play. So hence the evolution of a condo. So I learned sales, and I was selling the first stuff out there, and wanted to grow into management and eventually learn design and marketing and all of those things as I grew up. But I guess what happened in short, I spent 25 years working for those four big companies, two public companies, two private companies. And I sort of hit a point in my life. I was getting into my late 40s, and I said, there's probably another 25 years left in me. And maybe I should go to the service side. So instead of, working on 10, 12 projects for one person, I'd work on 10 or 12 projects for 10 or 12 other people.
Mm-hmm.
And our market, as you know, Howard, about half of the builders do it themselves, and about half of the builders hire outside companies. And when the market's good, everybody, thinks they know what's right. And when prices are going up and people are buying like crazy, everyone thinks they're a marketing genius. But the reality is there are better ways to do it, and there's more efficient ways to market it. And there's certainly maximizing revenue matters in a climate where costs are going through the roof and the cost of building is going through the roof. So I learned from really smart, strong, disciplined people, some entrepreneurial, some, always staying within their box. But I think what excited me was the opportunity to spread my wings and take everything I learned and try to apply it to my own business. And when I opened up, just in short, 14 years ago, TCS Marketing Systems, the idea, we were a sales brokerage, we were a sales company, but we were very much a marketing company. And sales is sort of a branch that falls under that big umbrella of marketing. Design it right, market it right, and then it'll sell, as opposed to, just selling the stuff. So what we tried to develop, and what I have developed, is a team of people who worked for developers, a team of people who understand marketing, positioning, design, and the most important thing, which is the bottom line. Selling, as I said, is easy, but selling a building and watching it get built 3-4 years later with no profit doesn't pay and doesn't help, and in many ways doesn't pay, because you usually don't get paid for it.
Well,
But
on that point,
I think what we did different was to take a sort of an in-house mentality and bring it outside. So when people hire us, they're getting that VP of sales and marketing. They feel like there's someone who cares about their stuff, and we really also, I guess, as a word of wisdom, I didn't want to take over the whole world. I didn't want to fracture existing relationships. I wasn't going to take the in-house people and have them go outside. But there was room for someone who did better, or who cared more, and worked at the beginning of the project, the middle, and the end. So it was really much an in-house mentality with an outside firm, and that was really a key to our success, and has been.
One of the things that people don't understand from the developer standpoint is the gamble that developers take. You mentioned it in a few minutes ago, that you don't plan a project and it goes up the next year. You plan a project, and I know from being in this business, the costs have gone crazy. Lumber costs have gone crazy. Land costs, taxes. And so developers have to be, and I think that's one of the strengths that you bring, is you help them make good decisions before they start building. Because once they start building, it's pretty hard to turn the tap off. So
that's for sure. And look, there have been more than a few projects that were sold above market and sold with big deposits that didn't go forward. And from a selfish standpoint, I don't want to be involved in any more of those than I have to, because if they don't get forward, we're not going to get paid. The relationships we've created with the outside force, the agents that we've brought in to help support the project, aren't going to get paid. So, there's a gamble we take. If I take on a project and the client doesn't go ahead, I put my name on it. I've mobilized other people to support it, and it's not a great thing. And I guess what my experience and my team's experience understands is the importance of selling it right, selling fast, selling at $1, taking advantage of the day that is your day is great. But at the end of the day, with what you referenced, Howard, the construction costs, the cost of getting things done, now the whole change in processes and time because of COVID hasn't sped anything up. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the complications in getting things done on time and on budget And it's one of my clients said to me, like, what kind of business am I in? I sell all this stuff, and 4 years later, the value goes up, the cost goes up, and I'm stuck selling it at the price that I sold it at 4 years ago. I didn't have much of a rebuttal other than build apartment buildings, or build a thing first with your own money, and then sell it later. But it's a high risk business for developers, a high risk business for the sellers. And as a company, I've tried to say, and I could probably say, we sell for more. I don't sell for more because my clients actually want to. I sell for more because I want to, because I'm not sure that they can do what they say they're going to do. And the most savvy and veteran developers can't control the costs out there. So we do our best to get them as close to, over the top, with a little bit of gravy on top, just to ensure that things work, because the banks aren't going to finance projects that aren't going to make money. And so I think that developer mentality, the costs, the marketing expenditures, maximizing the revenue. We're not about sales, we're about revenue. And I think that has been a key to our success in holding some really good clients along the way.
The other thing which you can't control is timing, right? I mean, all of a sudden the pandemic comes along that hasn't been in anyone's life or in the history of the world for 100 years. And now and now this is where flexibility comes in, adaptability comes in. And those that could figure it out were going to survive. And those that either didn't figure it out or couldn't figure it out or delayed in figuring it out, they got caught. And in pre-construction, particularly in Toronto, where there's so much competition, I'm assuming that, you and your team had to come up quickly with, we got to get this done. It's a new world. We don't have a lot of time to figure it out, and make some moves that got you continuing along the line of success. So let's talk about first time you heard this pandemic coming along. You had projects going on. Nobody can talk to anybody. Nobody can see anybody. Nobody can, do anything other than worry about it. And in the first wave, how did you approach that with your team?
I have to tell you, it was obvious, it was a shocker. I talk about my experience working and how I've been able to carry it forward and how I conduct myself now. I once chatted with you. I remember when I went to university 35 years ago. I don't think I learned anything at the time. I was scrambling to get through and get ahead. However, it all kicks in. So everything kicks in later. Now, interestingly, I studied in school. I was a history major. I studied American history and Canadian history. So when you study history, 30 years later, things make sense. The pandemic made no sense. Mm-hmm. I never in a million years could have expected that this was going to happen in our lifetime. And for some reason, although we've been exposed, to SARS and West Nile and different things, I don't ever remember feeling it, to any degree whatsoever. I assumed it was something that happened to some people and wouldn't happen to others. So this was all bets off. The whole world was paralyzed. So as an industry, no one knew what to do. So and nobody really thought that this was going to be as serious as it would. So we all shut down because we knew we had to shut down, and that was in the spring. But when real estate was considered essential, there's so much competition, so many choices. I knew that something good was going to happen in terms of transactions in real estate. So we all shut down for 2 months, but we realized we could be open on an appointment basis, or we also realized that there's so much information out there anyways. You can share information with people, and you don't have to bring them into a sales office, into a contrived or high pressured off environment and motivate them and intimidate them to buy. So I think there was a new sort of effort to find better ways to communicate with people who you didn't have the privilege of pressuring in a sales situation. And it forced everyone to get on their toes, and technology took a step up, and people were demonstrating things virtually and by video that they couldn't normally animate, and when they're seeing people in person. I thought the industry pivoted incredibly well. I thought that buying from your home, Zoom meetings, Zoom presentations, all of those things started happening. The whole world was Zooming. And we did something that I thought was clever. I went to some of these broker launch presentations, and everyone gets on a Zoom, and then someone loses the link and someone can't hear, and we're not sure if everyone's on. And technology always has its sort of foul ups. It's not perfect. So one of the things we did, which I think was we were probably the first to do it. Someone thought of something smart. I'll take some credit for it, and said, instead of having a Zoom meeting and hoping that everyone's Wi-Fi is up and that it works, why don't we pre-record something? So we pre-recorded. I remember it was a project we launched in Barrie, 2 large towers on the shores of Lake Simcoe, and we did a sort of like a game show, and it was like a David Letterman, and the sort of theme was the 10 top reasons to invest in Barrie, which was pretty timely because there was a lot of movement out of the city, and cottage country's gone through the roof. But yeah, we had a guest, and I was one of the speakers, pitching it to the sales world and the brokerage community, and the developer was the other guest. And it was brilliant because you zoomed on, you clicked on, and you watched it all at the same time. But if you couldn't watch it, you could watch it at another time, and it was loaded on the broker portal. So it was sort of just a next step of communicating with people in the comfort of their home, but still maintaining the urgency and the start and the stop and the launch date and the rush to get out, to get a piece of this. So we shut down. We didn't know what to do. We started talking to people virtually. We started showing our faces virtually. We were able to see people by appointment, but I think there was a real conscientious effort by the developers not to push that. Even though it's easier to sell things to people when you're in front of them, you have to respect people's wishes and naturally health concerns. So while there were appointments available, it became, you want to have a conversation with us? We'll do it, on a Zoom call. We'll do it on a FaceTime call. The industry pivoted amazingly. And I think customers felt an opportunity to learn about real estate without being pressured, without someone breathing over their shoulder. And the sales have been outstanding. I mean, different reasons, but I'm sort of proud of being part of that industry that really was socially conscious, but very clever in stepping up to the plate so we could continue to be active.
And it's interesting that change in the way you market to the consumer, I guess, or to the agent base. It also, I'm just thinking as you talk about it, opens it up to a global market. Like all of a sudden, anybody anywhere can learn about your projects, which I suppose could have been done, but not as easily. Once you have those videos, it's great.
Great point. A very good point, Howard. The developers, and I worked for them and managed their budgets for 25 years. They don't like spending money that they don't need to spend. And I guess conducting business in the new world, in the COVID world, was more expensive because, we still needed a sales office. We still needed a scale model. We still needed a brochure. We still needed renderings. We needed all of those things. But what wasn't accounted for in their budgets when they started was all of the technology, all of the digital stuff. And having worked at Concord and doing projects and presentations overseas, I was in the Middle East, I was in the Far East. It involves some technology. It involves creating videos and things that, like you said, have a global kind of appeal. So very good point, a great point, Howard. The materials that builders have reluctantly produced do serve a purpose, and they do allow people from outside of our world to utilize it and get to know our world. So in most of these videos, we'll paint a really nice circle around any project. It'll show you where you are and what amenities are there and what infrastructure is there and why it's a good idea. So they do very much serve that purpose. And, to the extent that developers might need those one day, those will come in handy. If not, it was the cost of doing business. But it's amazing what you can see now. Any project, you go onto their website or look at what the realtors are promoting, and it's just outstanding, the level of technology and stuff that you can see now, which makes buying a little more fun.
The other thing about that technology is, and I saw it when I was managing that company, is young people don't look at business like we look at business. In other words, the ability to move to a more virtual, listen, you have kids. Nobody wants to use the phone. They don't know what the phone is for. They know how to use texting. And so their approach to technology is a lot different. And if you show them that you're tech savvy, then I think you're, in addition to the products that you're marketing, you've got a demographic that likes the way you're approaching them. And I don't think that's going to change, once the pandemic kind of runs its course. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what I think also a very good insight of yours. The world's trending towards technology. Even us older people have had to become technologically savvy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. The young people, it's almost like my kids have a newfound respect for me, because I now know how to set up a Zoom call. I know how to do all those things. But I think going forward, I do think people will go back to their offices, and people will get out of their homes, and people will, um, conduct themselves the way we do as social animals. However, there's going to be a number of people who don't. There's a number of people who will work from home. The number of businesses that will save the money and save the expense of putting on a show, and people will work from home. But I think I think all of us will be affected forever. All of us will do things differently, and technology is going to make it more seamless. So I think the new trend is here to stay in different degrees. Some people will be thrilled to get ready and get dressed up and get to work, and we're human, we're social beings. But I think it's prepared us for the future, whether we wanted to be prepared or not. And I think this is a trend that will stay.
Where I think the savings might be for developers. And I don't disagree with you. I think we are social beings. Anybody you talk to, they want to go to a restaurant, they want to see their friends. This is like, and to say nothing of if you have little kids that can't even go to school and see their friends. So this is just the adult part. But the cost of travel, not only financial but also time. I mean, when you've got these ways to market to people, and maybe you can save one trip to the Far East, and what the costs are. Or maybe you can now explore a market like the continent of Africa that you've never thought about. So I think technology, and particularly people like you that recognize the benefit, I think what it's going to do is it's going to open doors that were never opened. And when I invited you to come on, I've always had so much respect for your career, and I thought, what an ideal guest. Because this is a time when people are looking for answers, and a little bit looking for what's the future going to be, and for that reason, I thought that this would be a great way for you to explain it, and for our audience to hear more about you. So I really appreciate it. We'll do this again, because I think it's important to see where this ends up in the future.
I appreciate it, and it's always great to catch up with you. We have, even if you were to look at my roster and look at our team. We have a very diverse group of people, all shapes and sizes and ages and demographics, and I think that's a reflection of a changing world, and a technologically savvy world. And I like to think that we're future-proofing ourselves as a company, but it's a new world, and Toronto is the land that welcomes everyone. So I think as part of doing a good job. As a marketing expert, if we can call it that, maybe by virtue of my years of experience and what have you, sales and marketing expert. I think probably my greatest success was about surrounding myself with the right people. Either I sometimes landed with them, because you work for those big machines, you land with a lot of good people. In my own business, I was able to do the same. And I thought surrounding myself with great people would make us a great company. I'm one voice, a seasoned voice, but I've got a really diverse, young, fun, forward-thinking group of people. And I think, if we didn't learn anything, Howard, we learned that we now need to understand how important it is to prepare ourselves to think forward. First, we have to worry about surviving, but it seems as though we're all going to survive. And it's a really exciting time. It really brought, as I said, the pandemic with all of the bad. I think it did a lot of good for a lot of people, and it put us, took stock of where we were and where we need to go. And to me, other than the brutality of how it's affected people, physically and all that, have been a great turning point in the business, and it's really forced me to think differently and to act differently and prepare differently. And always great to talk with you. Always been a great front runner yourself and a forward thinker. And as I said, I always recall coming out with my real estate license, and look, there's 45,000 real estate licenses out in Toronto. Well, who are going to be the people who make the difference? Well, I knew Howard Drukarsh. I maybe didn't know that in 1984 when I got my license, but I certainly have known that over the years. So it's great to connect with you as always.
Well, I can assure you Howard Drukarsh didn't know that in 1984 either. So thank you for the kind comment. Listen, I know you're busy, and I always appreciate when people take time to come on the podcast. So, Mark, stay safe. We all want to do that, and continued success. And we'll see you back here again. Okay.
I look forward to it. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Cheers.
Take care. We want to thank Mark Cohen of TCS, and we want to thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed our podcast, please like, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast network or on our YouTube channel. And please tell your friends about us. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can reach us by email at info@rewithhd.com or on our website, rewithhd.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.